The pleas of radicals, the excitement of a courtroom drama, the faltering of an old politician. These events revolve around the debate between evolutionary Darwinists and fundamentalist Christians in Dayton, Tennessee, 1925. The issue? A teacher by the name of John Scopes had been found utilizing a textbook that advocated evolutionary Darwinism, a crime according to the Butler Law of Tennessee, which advocated for the teaching of biblical creationism in public schools. Of course, the issue would become much greater than that, for it was only a misdemeanor, a crime hardly worthy of national attention. To place the Scopes trial in its proper context, however, let us consider the ongoing debate between creationists and evolutionists during this time, and the years preceding the trial, as well as the nature of Darwinism in the early 20th century. The Darwinism of the time, immediately succeeding Charles Darwin, was an all-encompassing way of life. What was true for Darwinists was not just true at the biological level, but at the levels of society, politics, economics. In a sense, evolutionary theory became an all-encompassing religion, otherwise known as social Darwinism. To exemplify this, let us seek to understand the controversial textbook itself and the social implications that it sought to promote through Darwinism. A Civic Biology, presented in Problems by George William Hunter, promoted Darwinian-based arguments for racism and eugenics alike, as is stated in the 17th chapter concerning heredity, variation, plant, and animal breeding. He makes an argument for breeding well in parasitical families which states, quote, "Just as certain animals or plants become parasitic on other plants or animals, these families have become parasitic on society. They not only do harm to others by corrupting, stealing, or spreading disease, but they are actually protected and cared for by the state out of public money." End quote. It is here that we come to understand that Ebenezer Scrooge would have likely been himself a Darwinist. This textbook was not just a strange occurrence, for eugenics and racism based upon scientific theory were ideas rapidly growing during the interwar period. Margaret English de Almenina describes eugenics laws as existing in, quote, 27 states and were even supported by Supreme Court legislation at the height of the movement, end quote. Such as the Buck versus Bell case where Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote in brief, quote, "It is better for all the world if instead of wanting to execute degenerate offspring for crime, or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit for continuing their kind." So the question now becomes, did the Scopes trial garner the attention that it did because of Christian fundamentalists apparently ignorant to newly discovered biological processes? Or did they see an incompatibility in both the foundations of Darwinism and its implications with the gospel? 65 years before the Scopes trial, there had been the first clash between Darwinism and Christianity in England. Bishop Samuel Wilberforce and Thomas H. Huxley battled each other on stage, as the bishop stated that incompatibility between Scripture and Darwinist theory. Although good-intentioned, Wilberforce was ultimately ignorant of the science, whereby Huxley was able to end the debate articulately and provocatively in favor of the Darwinists. Such a debate concerned foundations, but in Dayton, Tennessee, it concerned implications. Amy Semple McPherson allied herself with William Jennings Bryan, the prosecutor of the Scopes case, in hopes that fundamentalism could strike a victory against not only evolutionary theory, but also racism and eugenics. These scientific theories ran counter to what proponents of the social gospel had advocated for from the very beginning, that is, rest for the weary, the duty of the strong to help the weak, and the Christian message of charity as permeating throughout the whole society. Such endeavors are evidenced in the generosity of her Angelus Temple and the Salvation Army. As the story goes, the Scopes trial ended in disaster for the fundamentalists, for William Jennings Bryan's blunder to be cross-examined, due to his interpretation of Scripture that the earth was much older than the literal six-day creation account of Genesis. The Bible was called out as able to be interpreted outside of the text, thus ending the creationary credibility of the Scriptures. But what can be learned from this? Perhaps the concession of something that seems so small may have larger repercussions unseen. For who can say how the continuation of evolutionary Darwinism impacted the world at large from the results of this one case in a small town in Tennessee? Thank you.